Well, the title of the message is To Tell the Truth. Some of you that are as old as I am, you remember an old television show years ago called To Tell the Truth? And they had 3 contestants come out, and they'd all claim to be a certain profession or whatnot, and one of them was telling the truth and the other 2 were lying. And the panelists had to figure out who was truthful and who was lying. Anyway, I remember that, and I think about this message today. Sometimes we kind of struggle to be honest and to tell the truth. Years ago, there was a Time magazine cover, actually it was on the cover, that said, lying, everybody's doing it. Like it's just a regular thing. There's a survey not long ago that said about 2/3 of our country do not believe that it's wrong to tell a lie. And only about 31% agreed with the statement that honesty is the best policy. And so, obviously, we have a problem in our culture with always being honest and telling the truth. The guy that invented the polygraph, Leonard Keeler, back in the 40s, he did like 25,000 polygraph examinations, and after he had done all that, he said that human beings are basically deceptive. It's just kind of a part of our nature. Of course, we know that. We have a sinful nature, and so we incline towards sin, and so sometimes we're tempted, to tell something that's not quite true. What's the difference in a regular lie and a white lie? Is there any difference in that? White lie is just a little bitty lie, and a regular lie is a big old fat lie, right? But they're both wrong, aren't they? Nowhere in the Bible does it say, do not tell a white lie, or do not tell a regular lie. It says, don't lie. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. Always be honest and tell the truth. When I was a kid in grade school, maybe this is true of you, they told us the story of how George Washington, when he was 6 years old, took an axe. His father had given him an axe, and he chopped down his father's cherry tree. And his dad got upset about it and jumped him out about it and said, did you do this? Did you tear it? He said, I cannot tell a lie. I chopped down the cherry tree. How many of you ever heard that? Well, that's probably a lie. Okay? Most likely that's a myth. You go back and look in the history books, nobody can find that anywhere. It came along years later in an edition that had already been published and everything. So apparently somebody thought that sounded like something that George Washington would say, being a man of integrity, and so that story got told, but it's probably not true. Now, it doesn't mean that he lied. Maybe he did chop down the cherry tree and admit it, but there's no record of that. So we have to be careful to not be untruthful. So the 9th commandment in Exodus chapter 20, verse 16, is you shall not give false testimony against your neighbor. Or in the King James it says, do not bear false witness against your neighbor. So be an honest person. Always tell the truth. The psalmist said in Psalm 34:12, do you want to live and enjoy a long life? Then don't say cruel things and don't tell lies. The Bible says if you'll be an honest person, if you'll be a person of integrity, it'll help you to have a long, full, and happy life before the Lord. Well, let's look at several different types of lies. Why do we lie? There's different types of lying. And I mentioned a white lie. But let's talk about 5 different types. And the first one we'll call a cruel lie. A cruel lie would be, to hurt someone or to slander someone. And that has to do with resentment. The motive would be resentment in your heart towards someone. We see politicians doing this a lot, don't we? Or they'll say something that may just be completely false about their opponent, but they want to get votes, and so they'll just say anything. Say something that's totally untrue, and knowing that it's untrue, but it's kind of hard for people to get that out of their head. And so sometimes we say things to hurt someone or to slander someone. The Pharisees were always telling falsehoods against Jesus, of course, and claiming that he was a false teacher, that he was of the devil, and things like that. It was out of resentment and anger and jealousy and bitterness towards the Lord. So sometimes you might tell a cruel lie just to hurt someone, just to kind of stick them a little bit, even though you know it's not true. Second type of lie is a cowardly lie, and that's done out of fear or embarrassment. A good example of this would be when the Apostle Peter was confronted 3 times about his relationship with Christ after Jesus had been arrested. And 3 times Peter said, I don't know the man. I don't know him. And so he lied. But he did that out of fear. He did that in a cowardly way because he was afraid that they would do to him what they were about to do to Jesus and to execute him. And so sometimes we're caught in a sudden moment, and out of fear, we say something that we know that is not true. Not premeditated, not something you plan to do, it just kind of snuck up on you. Then there's the conceited lie. Conceited lie is to impress somebody or to brag about something, and that's usually because of some kind of insecurity in your life. I looked it up this morning. Did you know that employers say that those who apply for a job with them and give them a resume, that about 85% of them embellish their resume? They don't tell the complete truth. I was watching Judge Judy one time, and it had to do with a car deal or something that went bad, and somebody was suing the person that sold them the car and said, well, he didn't tell me this, or he didn't tell me that, or he said this about the car, or he said that about the car. And she said, well, that's just puffing. That's just called, there was a legal term for that, called puffing. And she said, we allow a little bit of that in the law because that's just going to happen. You're going to build something up in somebody's eyes. You're going to puff a little bit. You're going to kind of make it look better than it is. And so she didn't really even consider that, what the guy had said. She didn't deny that he said it. She said, well, a little bit of that is allowable. And so sometimes we exaggerate or we say things that are not quite true because we're trying to impress somebody else. We want to get the job, or we want to look good in the eyes of someone else. I'm sure we've all done something like that. Sometimes we leave things out. It's not so much what we say, it's what we leave out, right? Just talk about all the good stuff and leave the negative stuff out of there. Isn't that kind of a lie by omission? Not telling the whole truth? When you put your hand on a Bible and raise your hand in court of law, you say, I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And so that's what we're talking about, being an honest person. Then there's a calculated lie. That's to manipulate someone or to trick somebody. That's done out of selfishness. You're trying to get them to do something for you, or you're trying to get something out of them, and so it's trickery of some kind, manipulation. And then there's a convenient lie, when you just say something that's not true, probably out of laziness or busyness, or you're just being dishonest. Like you say, hey, call up a friend, say, hey, let's go play golf this Friday. It looks great. Looks like the weather's going to be good. Let's go play. Oh, I can't go. I'm sick. I'm sick. And then you look on Facebook, and that sick person is out at the movies on Friday night. What's up with that? It doesn't seem to make sense. And so, I'm busy. I'm sick, or I've got to go over to Aunt Martha's, and do this or that. And I used to have a friend when I was a kid. He could make up a lie, in a split second, It's something he didn't want. And I knew it wasn't true when he said it. Somebody would say, y'all want to do this? No, I got to do this, He just makes something up, And that just kind of shuts down the conversation, and kind of does away with it. But, sometimes it's tough. If you're kind of backed into a corner, somebody wants you to do something, or they want you to come over or whatnot, and you really don't want to, but you don't want to tell them that because you don't want to hurt their feelings, right? And so you're kind of backed into a corner there where you don't want to be completely straightforward because you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but at the same time you're not being truthful. It's probably much, much better to just tell the truth, but to do it in the right way. We're going to talk about that. To do it in the right way. Be honest, but don't be hurtful. You got to sometimes use a little bit of diplomacy, I guess, when you do that. So there's 5 different types of lies. Well, how do you tell the truth? 4 different ways. Tell the truth completely. Tell the complete truth. Proverbs 10:10 says, someone who holds back the truth causes trouble. And so if you're not telling the truth, some kind of trouble is going to come out of that. Sometimes silence implies agreement, doesn't it? If there's a conversation going on between several people and somebody is saying something that you totally disagree with, but you're absolutely silent, you don't say anything, doesn't your silence somehow kind of imply that you agree with what's being said? At least they probably perceive that. Sometimes we get into discussions at work or with friends or whatever, and it gets kind of tense. Maybe it's about politics or about sensitive issues, ethical issues or whatever, and we feel very strongly about something, but we may not say much because we're kind of timid about it, and so we kind of hold back the truth. And sometimes we might let somebody say something that we totally disagree with. We think that's totally untrue, but we don't try to correct that out of respect for someone or out of fear that they won't like you anymore or something like that, and that's not a good thing. You need to be honest. That's when you just step up and say, well, I respect your opinion, but I disagree, and here's why I disagree. I think that's how we really bring about positive change, by being very straightforward, very honest, and just telling people what you really believe. So, tell the truth completely. Proverbs 28:23 says, he who rebukes a man will in the end gain more favor than he who has a flattering tongue. So in other words, instead of just, placating people and just telling them what they want to hear, sometimes a person needs to be told the truth. Have you ever made a statement like this to someone? I'm telling you this because I really care about you. It's kind of like when your mom or dad said, this is going to hurt me more than it hurts you, right before you get a whipping or something. It's kind of a tough thing. But sometimes we have to say things like that. I'm telling you this because I really do care about you. I want the best for you. And I feel like you're going in the wrong direction and nobody will tell you different. And so I want to tell you the truth. I want to be straightforward and honest with you, but I'm doing it out of concern and out of love for you. I'm not doing it to be mean or spiteful or anything like that. If you're a person of integrity to begin with, then most folks will really respond well to that. I think they'll understand that that's what your true motive is and that you're not trying to, just be hurtful or hateful. So tell the truth completely. I remember years ago, keep showing my age, on the Monday Night Football, we had Don Meredith and Howard Cosell. Man, that's been a while. And old dandy Don Meredith, he's always getting on to Howard Cosell because Howard Cosell was kind of a know-it-all, and he'd start telling stuff, and going off and everything. And just about every Monday night, Don Meredith would say, Howard, tell it like it is. Tell it like it is, Howard. And it's a big joke because he wouldn't let him get away with it. He'd hold his feet to the fire to tell the truth. So tell the truth completely. Secondly, tell the truth consistently. Be consistent about it. Don't be like the boy who cried wolf all the time, saying things that's not true, and then when you say something that is true, nobody believes it because you're not a person of integrity, you're not a person of character. Proverbs 11:3 says, if you do the right thing, honesty will be your guide, but if you're crooked, you'll be trapped by your own dishonesty. It's talking about Judge Judy. She also said that if you tell the truth, you don't have to have a good memory. She has people come before her all the time that are not telling the truth, and they're trying to figure out what she wants to hear. So they're trying to think about what to say. You can tell they're thinking about it. She says, I see what you're doing. She says, if you just tell the truth, you don't have to have a good memory. Just tell it. Just tell it as you remember it, and that's most likely going to be the truth. When they have a police interrogation and they take somebody into the interrogation room and they ask them a bunch of questions, one technique that they'll use is they'll ask the same question in a different way. And they'll do that throughout the interrogation, usually a long interrogation. And they're trying to see if there's any inconsistency in what a person is saying. Because if there is, that's a good indication they're not being honest. If a person is honest, there's going to be consistency. And they're going to say exactly what happened, and it's going to be easy to see that they're telling the truth. Proverbs 13:17 says, a wicked messenger falls into trouble, but a trustworthy envoy brings healing. And so honesty really is the best policy, isn't it? Always be honest, always tell the truth. Number 3, tell the truth compassionately, with compassion. Now this is not so much the fact that you're telling the truth, but it's the way that you say it. Sometimes you can say something in a very hurtful way to somebody when it's totally unnecessary. If your wife, guys, comes into the room and she just got a new hairdo, a new haircut and everything, and it's all fixed and everything, she said, what do you think about my hairdo? What are you supposed to say? What if you don't like it? Should you say, well, that makes you look heavy. That haircut makes you, oh gosh, don't say that, right? Just say, well, that's great. It looks, I don't know what you say. It's a good question. I just tell the truth. I get in trouble. I just tell the truth. I either like it or I don't. Sometimes we have to really kind of bite our tongue a little bit, don't we? Obviously, she's fishing for a compliment, so you got to be kind of careful as you go about it. But be careful to not say something in a hurtful way. Ephesians 4:15 says, speak the truth in a spirit of love. And so, again, if your motive is to be a positive influence on somebody, to help somebody, to move things in a positive direction, then that's good. And so you should be very honest, but do it in a way that's very kind and compassionate and in a way that's not hurting somebody's feelings. If your motive is to bring about change in somebody, people change when they feel love, but if it's no love with it, they feel like they're being attacked. They feel like you're just attacking them. And so it's a totally different scenario. Ephesians 4:29 says, do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only that which is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. And so think about that. Say things that build people up, that make people feel good about themselves. Sometimes it's best to just not say anything at all if the situation doesn't demand it. If there's not any harm in it, just don't say anything, as long as it's not a harmful thing. So, tell the truth with compassion. And then number 4, tell the truth very carefully, or maybe tactfully. Sometimes we get all caught up with emotion or anger, and out of anger we say something that's very hurtful. It's not true. How many times have you had to apologize to somebody and say, well, I didn't really mean that? You ever had to do that? Gosh, I've had to do it many times. You get angry or you get emotional about something. If it's something you really want, really bad, and the other person doesn't want to do it or whatnot, and you're trying to convince them, you may have a lot of anger or just resentment, and it just kind of boils over, and you kind of lash out at somebody, and you say something you shouldn't say. You say something that isn't true. You go too far. And so be careful not to do that. Sometimes we have to apologize. Say, look, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. I didn't really mean that. And it's not what I really believe. I just said it out of anger. Proverbs 12:18 says, sharp words cut like a sword, but words of wisdom heal. It's very healing. And in Proverbs 16:23, intelligent people think before they speak. Sometimes that's hard to do, isn't it? If you're in an argument with somebody, your spouse or somebody else, you're probably not really thinking about what you're going to say. Listening to what they're saying, you're just thinking about what you're going to say as soon as they shut up, right? And then you just jump right in. You're not real careful about what you're going to say and the way to say it. And so be careful about that. The Lord would have you to be very kind and compassionate to people, and especially those that you're close to, your family members, your husband, your wife. Be very, very kind in your conversation. Ecclesiastes 8:6 says there's a proper time and a procedure for every matter. And so go about it in the right way. Think about what you're going to say. I do that a lot since it's my profession. Think about what I'm going to say and how I'm going to say it. And so I study my sermon during the week and come up with an outline and everything and try to, as best I can, to get from the Word of God what it's saying so I can convey that to you. And then I try to think up illustrations and stuff that I could use. And then I look at it again on Saturday night at home. Then I look at it again on Sunday morning. And all along there, I'll make notes, I'll make changes, I'll come up with new ideas. And it's, some way to try and communicate as best I can exactly what the Bible is teaching. And so it's important, to be careful in what you say and how you say it, because it can have a tremendous impact on the lives of people. Really, the real problem has to do with what's in your heart. The Bible says, out of the overflow of the mouth, the heart speaks. And so that means whatever is in your heart, whatever's deep within your heart and soul, that's going to come out of your mouth. It's going to come out in your behavior and the way you speak, the way you talk to people, and the things that you say, whether they're true or not. And so we have to be careful, don't we? Make sure that you have a heart that's close to the Lord, that you're honest before the Lord, that you always tell the truth. Amen? Let's all stand and pray.